Hey guys, what's up? We're back for another episode of the Horror for Chicks podcast. I'm Sonia and Sandra and Angie are here also. And we're continuing our discussion on Only Murders in the Building. Today we're discussing episode 7 of season 3, Cobra. All right, let's get to it. So,
Cobra. I
Cobra.
love it.
I love it.
Cobra. So,
A
Cobra.
superhero Cobra.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So, Cobra.
Your
If,
history.
oh my God.
The catchphrase. The best. You're
I have some amazing quotes
history.
from this episode, by the way.
It was really good.
I would love to read.
Guys, if you don't know or don't remember, Cobra is the name of one of the shows that Ben Glenroy acted in this series. So that's the title of this
Was it
episode.
a show or was it a movie? I thought it was a movie.
Oh,
No, it was
movie.
a
A movie,
It was
right.
like a movie series. Like, yeah.
The Girl Cop thing was a show.
Girl Cop was a
Yes.
show.
Yeah, right, got it.
Oh my
All right.
God, Dog Cop. Oh my God. Okay.
So yeah, it was like a movie. It had sequels or something. It's
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, so we're back. So the beginning opening of the show today, they showed it was kind of flashbacks, sort of.
Yeah.
It showed some of the tenants from the Arconia, right? Uma, and she was hanging out with her friend Bunny, right?
Right.
So Bunny, unfortunately died in one of the past seasons.
In season 2.
Yeah, so they were showing them kind of, being friendly, hanging out, going to lunch, and then kind of Bunny fades away, and it's just Uma. It's just remembering kind of her friend, and that she's by herself, like
Yeah.
she doesn't have any friends or her best friend around. And she's back at the diner where they always go, and then they kind of show her. She's a bitter older woman,
Sarcastic.
sarcastic, bitter, and she's walking around, and she starts. They start showing her like klepto tendencies, right?
Yeah.
She sees certain things around, and she just picks them up, and she starts saying how things don't leave people, so
Right.
started to kind of collect it, and she has this whole closet in her apartment of just stuff that she's picked up along the way.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if she's just a klepto just for the sake of being a klepto. I think it's more like, she's saying like she takes things from people to basically keep them alive. So like I think it has to be meaningful to her. It seems like.
Well, I think she takes things. I also agree that I don't think that she's a klepto, like she's been a klepto all this time.
Right.
I think she just takes things because now, she had a best friend, Bunny. Bunny's gone, and she started doing the klepto thing because things don't leave her.
Like people
leave, but
things don't leave. So she started
forever,
collecting, but she was really stealing. Grabbing things from certain places, like small things
there, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Then they show the scene from several episodes back where Ben falls. Let's see. Oliver, Charles, and Mabel run out the elevator. Ben falls from the elevator. He's dead, right? They find him dead. And then you see Uma there, and that's right. And it's true because she was there when, at that point, and she always.
She was the first reaction. She was
right.
Exactly. She never liked that they do this podcast because I think it represents the building in a bad light, and she just doesn't like the attention to the building in that way and stuff. So she always kind of criticized it. And but anyway, she saw Ben fall, and then you see her looking at the hanky that Ben had, right? So now we know who took the hanky.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know who took the hanky, and in the beginning I thought, oh man, she's the one, but I'm not, obviously. Well, we could get to the end, but I'm not
convinced
or sure that she's
right,
that she's guilty, right?
No, right. But so that whole thing happened in the beginning, and then they show Charles. Well, they show Charles, and he's at the diner too. He comes to the diner, and Uma's there in a different booth.
They're
right?
like facing each other.
They're facing
Yeah.
each other, but in different booths. And she's kind of being, like you said, sarcastic,
Herself.
self-sarcastic to him and say, oh, you know, where are your friends? You know, things like
Right.
that and stuff. And he was like, don't worry, I'm just here reading my book. I'm not here to bother you or do anything. And blah, blah, blah. But you could tell that she wants to like
Yeah,
She wants
she's
company.
somebody to
lonely.
sit with. Yeah.
She
So
wants-
she has like the, you know, she orders what she usually orders, and you know, she used to split her meal with Bunny. So she takes the sandwich and pushes it to the other side of the booth, because she wants Charles to come sit there, and then he
Yeah.
does. They're like chatting and stuff. And then he finds out that she took the hanky.
Yeah.
And he's like, you took the hanky? And she was like, oh, you know, you're not getting
He
it.
didn't need it.
She said, but I thought it was so funny. And she left, and she was like, "Thanks for lunch." And she,
And then he
So,
takes
how
she
much stuff did
she
you
stiffs
order?
him. She stiffs him with the bill, and then
how
he
much
literally-
did you eat? And he
Yeah.
said, I got lunch and dinner too.
yeah.
Got a whole bag and left. I was like, I thought that was funny.
It was very funny. Also, I love that's brilliant. Like I'm gonna try to do that.
That's a good.
When I have lunch with someone.
Don't do it to somebody you like, because they're not gonna like you after that.
I mean, you're supposed to do it to someone you like and who likes you, because then they'll forgive you and you walk out and that's
They
it.
might not though. They might not. So
Be careful.
so then they're
A bad date. You're like, thanks.
Oh well, yeah,
ordered
the bad
some
day.
other
Yeah,
food.
you
Oh
can do
yeah, you
that.
can do that. There you go. That's the perfect time to do it. And so they show Oliver, right? He's auditioning for Charles's part in the show.
Right.
Charles quit, so he needs a new constable for his play. And he's auditioning guys. They all look like him. He's funny with
All
the
look
gray
like him.
hair, with the white hair, and some have the hat, and you know, same build and all that. So,
They're terrible.
but they're not good. They're very bad, and he's unhappy. You could tell. And then Charles is coming up the elevator. He notices all these guys in the elevator that look like him, and he was like, "This guy's auditioning already." And goes to the apartment, and he starts, you know, kind of peeking and spying and seeing what's going on. And then, but they bring Cliff and his mom back, the producers
The
for
producers of the musical.
producer for the musical, and Cliff is like pissed off because you know, Charles or Oliver doesn't like any of the people who are auditioning, and it's not going well. And he's like, I think I know someone. So he makes a call, and you know, I think the mother and Oliver are a little nervous. And,
Yeah.
he's gonna call. What he's gonna do? He's a little quirky, so right. But then they find out that the guy is Matthew Broderick.
The Matthew Broderick.
I thought that was so great.
This episode was like, I know obviously it's set in New York and it's very New York, but this episode was very New York.
Yeah.
With the guests that they had, the two, because we'll talk about another one later.
Yeah.
But it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good.
It makes so much sense. He's a Broadway actor, Broadway actor here in New York, and he was there auditioning for this. And it was funny how him and Cliff know each other.
Yeah,
like they were like roommates or something during the Superstar Sandy.
Yeah, and wait. Not just this is so funny. I found this hilarious. Also, another quote that I have. So they shared a room at the Ritz-Carlton during the storm, Superstorm Sandy, which we had in New York a few years back. And Matthew Broderick kind of says like, yeah, we were at the Ritz and there was no room service.
Barely no room service.
There was like no room service, but we survived. Like as if that's
and Oliver's reaction, he was like, oh.
Yeah.
So funny.
But I said there was another quote in that little scene when Matthew Broderick is there, and he's performing, and he's obviously doing a great job, and Oliver is like in love with what's going on, and he goes, "Oh, you know, fantastic, magnificent, blah, blah." And he goes, "I've had sex dreams about this moment."
Yes. Yeah.
He's so funny. This show, like, every time you don't think they could top stuff, they top stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
So then they show, yeah, Matthew Broderick was there, and he's like, obviously, you got the part, and he wants to rehearse, and he's real into the acting, so he really wants to get into the character and know the character and where he's from, what he's about, so he can get, embody it.
right.
Right. And eventually, you could tell it's like Oliver's getting.
Well, he asked Oliver, or Oliver asked him at a certain point, I'd love to hear any feedback you have, or
ideas or whatever. Yeah.
Ideas you have for the characters. So he starts kind of throwing things out there. And at some point, Oliver says, all right, well, that sounds great. We'll see you tomorrow bright and early for rehearsal. Bright and early? No, this play is in like
2 weeks or something.
2 weeks. It's like, we got to keep rehearsing. So let's rehearse. And he just wouldn't stop trying to make a whole backstory for this constable. And Oliver's just like, no, he's just a guy. Just do the lines and that's it. There's nothing else about him. We don't know who his parents are. We don't know, whatever. But he's all into it, like, and Oliver, like, after a while, he can't take it. Like, and we should say too that Charles walks in and finds out that Matthew Broderick is there and that he's been chosen to replace him.
Yeah.
And Charles is sad because he's thinking Oliver at some point was gonna apologize or come back and try and get him back, and to so it kind of hit him a little bit, but that whole thing with Oliver and Matthew is so funny. And then after a while, Oliver goes into his office and you see him on the phone.
So wait, when Matthew Broderick, when Charles came in and saw Matthew Broderick there, he was like, Matthew Broderick. He was like, oh yeah, I know this guy. He auditioned for Ferris Bueller. And he's like,
that was another one. Another great quote.
You were 41.
He said for the millionth time, you would not have made a good Ferris Bueller. You were 41 at the time.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So after Oliver's getting annoyed by Matthew, and he's on FaceTime with someone, calling someone. He's like, oh, I need to ask you something, Matthew Broderick, like, and they showed who it was. And it was Mel Brooks.
Yeah. So cool.
And Oliver asked him, how was Matthew on the stage when you were doing the producers? And he said, you didn't ask him for input, or he's like, well, it's like, oh, he said, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. That was great. Two new guest stars in this episode. That was awesome, I thought. So we get to that whole thing. Oliver's had it with Matthew Broderick, and he tells Charles, you're hired, you're fired, bye.
Yeah, he couldn't take it.
Charles is back. Charles is back in the fold, and then he made up with Oliver. Him and Oliver made up, and now they're talking about figuring out how they have to make up with Mabel and get the group back together, right?
Meanwhile,
and he shows him the clues. Oliver shows Charles the book.
Yes.
Of Loretta's book that had all the cutouts of Ben and stuff. Like, this clue and whatever and all this.
And
right.
Charles
is just like, I don't think that proves anything. And he's like, oh, and you're a great, person to solve mysteries.
Right. And Charles told him about the hanky, that Uma had the hanky.
Right.
Yeah.
So they thought they had a couple of clues to share with Mabel. Now, Mabel's story is that she has gone off and she hooked up again with Theo, who told her about this the silent auction that's happening in Ben Glenroy's apartment. By the brother is hosting the auction, and he's auctioning off his stuff. So he takes her up there just to see what they're auctioning off, and just kind of like get a little bit more like information. So you see Mabel talking to Dickie, who's the brother, and she's kind of getting some information from him. She realizes that Dickie was actually the first son, but he was adopted. And then later on, Ben comes along, was a natural,
Right.
Biological child of the parents. So he was kind of like the little prince. Like he was seen as like, he was given everything, like on a silver platter.
Right. And Dickie was the one to like have to like protect him and watch him.
Dickie was
he's
the
done
one
it his whole life.
Clean up his mess.
So and he kind of mentions that, I did a lot of this work and I saved him from a lot of disgrace. And, I also, helped him with everything. So later on, we flash forward to a point where we see, Theo shows like one of the first comics that he drew, and you see he's like, oh well, yeah, it says B Glenroy, but actually it's an R, and Tolbert is like, wait a minute,
it looks Richard, like they made it look like a B.
They made it look like a B. So at this point, we see there, it kind of like lights up in everybody's face that like it's very possible that Dickie was so jealous, and there was so much,
he created the character and Ben like stole it and made millions off of it, and just like everything else in his life, he's had to play the second fiddle and like just have Ben like take the credit for everything. So definitely a big motive, because we had him kind of on a suspect list, but like kind of on the side a little bit, because there was other people that were a little bit ahead of him. But this was big. This was a big find. And Mabel is doing the podcast alone now. And Tolbert was helping her. But she's doing the podcast alone now. She set an episode and she posted it up, basically going over everything that Dickie was telling her. And she's trying to get the guy that they arrested for Ben's murder off, because she said it's not him. He's not the real killer.
Right. Based on what Dickie told her.
Right. So the cops get wind of this and they hear the podcast and they're like, well, we have to reopen the Glenroy case, because now they have to look at it. So there's going to be a new investigation by the police, and definitely have not extra suspects, but Dickie is definitely one of the top suspects right now, just because of the things that he said that he's done, protecting Ben, and the whole thing with the comic. Definitely has motive. Dickie's Ben steals all his stuff, and for years, and he's always been on the back burner, and now it's like his turn, and Ben's out and he doesn't have to deal with him anymore. So definitely a big motive. So he's definitely on a top suspect list right now for me. Definitely.
Well, and I just want to say how sad is it for Oliver and Charlie, who are now have made up, to find out that Mabel is doing the podcast.
They were definitely sad. They heard it. They were definitely sad.
I know. I mean, hopefully
now, definitely Dickie is on my top sus list as well. I don't know. It sounds really, convincing that it could be him. I still kind of don't want to let Tolbert go, because he seems a little too excited to like feed them information, and it's starting to seem a little suspicious. So he's still on my list for sure.
He's on mine too.
And where is Cindy Canning? Like, I mean, where has she been at?
Oh, did you notice that Tolbert said something? I had the same equipment as Cindy Canning. Like,
yes. I noticed that. Yeah.
Yes.
So
anyway.
Definitely Dickie's on my list, on top of my sus list for sure. And I still kind of have Cliff there, only because I think he's like weird, and he can be like an accomplice, like you said. They might be two people, right? He can be the second person,
right?
Kind of somehow. But yeah, Dickie's like here right now after this episode for sure. Like there can't be anyone else at the top right now. So, but yeah, I mean, this was a great episode, guys.
Mother of Sondheim, this was a good episode.
This is awesome, guys. Make sure you check us out here on YouTube. Follow our channel, subscribe to our channel. We're gonna have episodes podcast episodes of this show every week until it's over, the season's over. And make sure you follow us on Instagram and Threads and Facebook, also Horror Flick Chicks. And also our podcast is on several audio platforms, so you make sure to check us out there. And yeah, just come back next week. We'll be back for another brand new episode. And comment below, let us know what you think. Let us know your suspect list. And we'll see you next time. Peace, love, and horror. Bye.
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 That's the end.